Happy Wednesday, happy Wednesday, everybody. Hey, y'all, I am so pumped today. Not because it's hump day, but I get the opportunity to talk to someone, y'all. I'm going to be asking questions to Dr. Pam that I haven't even asked before with us just having a conversation. But it's another episode of Boston Friends. And I told y'all the reason why, because I know a bunch of amazing leaders, practitioners, change agents in their own right. And I want to spotlight them because I actually do know these people. I actually have access to them. Email, like the real emails, not the ghost emails or their info at emails. I actually got the real ones, y'all. But I know Dr. Pam to be a tremendous gift, not only to the Academy of Creative Coaching as the founder, but just to the world of academia and just what she is and how she serves. You'll understand what I mean in a little while. But before I get into too much of that, Dr. Pam, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. The honor is mine. Absolutely.
Oh, well, I tell you what, Dr. Pam, for those who do not have the fortune of knowing you personally, can you just tell people where you are in the world and a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get rolling?
Yes. So I am a college professor. That's kind of the day job, and which I love because it allows me the flexibility to do all of the other things that I do. So I'm a professor of research. So I conduct research. I teach research. I usher people through the research and dissertation process. I make doctors, and the headline is: I make doctors, I make authors, I make coaches. The other company is a publishing company, Tandem Light Press, founder and president. And we really help authors through that process of publishing and creating great books in the process. And then I'm also the founder and president of the Academy of Creative Coaching, which is at this moment the only Black female-owned accredited, fully ICF accredited coaching school in the world. And we are committed to creating coach certification and training that is life-changing. We integrate humanity principles like social justice, but also the tools and the meat of what it means to actually be a coach. So I'm really proud of these organizations.
So you went past that as if that was just a part of your day to day. I want y'all to. I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it a little different for y'all. She has no problem being one of the only. She said it. Female, minority owned, fully accredited ICF coaching program founders, presidents. And guess what, y'all? This ain't no happenstance or no little run of the mill program. And I'm not just saying that because I'm one of the faculty. But I am saying it because I've gone through the curriculum. I've gone through several modalities and coaching programs. And Dr. Pam and her team, they are studied coaches. They are practitioners, which I believe that makes a huge difference in how they approach, how they deliver, and connect with participants and future coaches. And it's not coming from this whole pontification standpoint of we're talking about somebody told us or once upon a time type of things, but it comes from this very authentic place. And I think the staff in and of itself and lead trainers and faculty like, Coach Sophia and Coach Dan and just the entire team lean into it. Dr. Shaw, like they just lean into it. And I'm so appreciative for the work that you do. And of course, she said, I said she makes coaches, she makes doctors. Her program is the reason why I'm on my doctor journey, because we went through a mastermind. In that mastermind, I wouldn't have sat through it had I not been going through the Academy of Creative Coaching. So thank you so much for pressing while we were in that session as one of the experts. That was you.
I love it. Oh, I love it. I can't wait to see Dr. Lawrence Henderson out in the world.
Oh, hey, the price is going up. I just tell you. But Dr. Pam, I always ask, particularly people that are doing such amazing things and impacting the world in so many different ways, what drives this being your work at this point in your life?
I think that it's hard to say what drives this as being my work because there's so many facets to the work. If I can try to encompass it in one thing, I think it's just the consistency of who I've always been. I have always. It's so funny because just last night I was stalking somebody's Facebook page, which is so bad to say, but they were a suggested friend. I was going through their pictures. It's somebody I've probably never even spoken to, but we went to high school together. And lo and behold, one of their pictures is the cover of our school newspaper in high school. And I'm one of the authors because I was on the school newspaper. And I got to read an article that I wrote 30 years ago. It was so surreal. And I'm thinking, wow, I'm still doing this work. I'm still a writer. I have a publishing company. I'm trying, and the article I was writing was kind of a coaching type of article. And it was just like, wow. So I have really just remained consistent with who I am as a person and what that call is. I never was the person who went to school and majored in something that people thought I should major in, or pursued the career that people think I need to pursue, or even pursued something specifically for the money. You need to be XYZ career because they make the most money. It's always been a reflection of just who I am at the deepest levels of my soul. And so I guess that is what has brought me here, because there is so much to my journey. The people who know me in Atlanta don't know the California Pam. I wasn't Dr. Pam at that time. I was the single mom struggling, sleeping on people's couches. I remember being on the corner and seeing a couch on the street and like, oh my gosh, a couch, pulling it into my studio apartment so my son and I can have something to sleep on. And it's just like, wow, it's mind blowing to see the journey, but also the consistency of me just remaining who I am through every step of the process.
As I hear you, Dr. Pam, like really just lean into that and owning that story. And we talk about that. Then the power of story is we take folks on this coaching journey, and as you take folks into understanding the why behind what they do. And I love that. I was listening to a message this past Sunday, and what the speaker was really talking through was, it's in you. It's always been in you. And now just the life you've lived, and not only has it been consistent, but you've turned it into a behavior. There was an intention that you woke up with that has you here today as founder, as CEO of all these life-giving organizations, all these purposeful organizations that, again, it's not just about you. You're
Right.
connecting folks to so like purpose, vision, direction for their own lives through what you do. And when you think about the state of the world,
Mm.
um, and how does Dr. Pam and your why, how do you connect to what's happening today?
It's interesting because there's so much happening today, and I have to do a combination of giving myself a break and stepping in fully to look at what we can do, to help change the way that things are going. And it could be a really scary time if we, let ourselves go all the way in and really look deeply at what's going on. I maintain that what we're doing from a coaching standpoint is life changing. And while we can talk about organizational change, my last degree is in leadership, and there's a lot of work on organizational change and structure and so forth, and all of that is well and good. But if the leaders who are driving this change are traumatized and hurt themselves, have dealt with their own monsters that they are now bringing into the workplace, all of that organizational fluff really means nothing. So I believe truly that the work that we do from a coaching standpoint, working with that individual, working with the core of who people are, is what's really going to make the change. So I kind of rest assured that, not necessarily rest assured, but I kind of find peace in knowing that the work that we're doing, as ugly as things get out in the world, the work that we're doing is truly making a difference. It doesn't have to be just me. It doesn't have to be just you, but we have a whole, team of people who have graduated from the Academy of Creative Coaching who are ready and who are doing their work in their corners of the world. And that just means a whole lot.
Man, the visual I got as you were describing that is, kind of the pebble, throwing it in the water and the
Yeah.
ripples. And,
Yeah.
and as long as like you just have to jump in
Right.
and don't have any attachment to the impact of the waves, but just jump in and get it started and do your individual work. And I think that's the part and I love that's day one. That's day one of the training is, hey, let's go in. Let's go
Mhm.
inward before. What's your mission? What's your vision? What
Right.
brought you here today? And I think that's the juice that we need multiplied throughout our society and our communities, is that personal ownership of what I'm going to do in my community, where I am starting today, instead of, what, somebody will do it. No,
Right.
be it, right? It's making and living all the quotes, be the change you want to see in the world. And
Yeah.
it's all of those things. And when you think about just kind of the next steps in the futures, like what's your big hairy goal? If you could share with all of the things you're doing, what's your big hairy goal that you want help with?
That's always a hard question for me
Yeah.
because I'm not one of those people who look 5 years down the line and say, this is where I'm going. I am so in the moment, present person. And not to say that I don't plan, that I don't have visions and I don't strategize. But part of me believes that every day is walking in that big hairy goal. I mean, if we look back 10 years from now, 10 years ago, and me just landing, or maybe 11 years ago, just landing in Atlanta, the vision was I wanted to be a prolific writer. And that was my entire focus for the last 2 decades. I want to be a writer. I want to be a writer. And what ended up happening was so much bigger than being a writer. Yeah, I accomplished that. But my goodness, I had no idea I was going to be a CEO of these companies. That this was not the goal. So this is why it's hard, because I can, have this idea, and next thing I know, it's something that's completely in another direction, but it's still in line with who I am. So I will say, because I won't dance around the question, I'll answer the question. But I will say that my big goal is no longer about a specific thing, but more about who I am, and who I aspire to be even more of is somebody who has a level of freedom that enables me to move in the direction that I need to move. So if I get an opportunity, for example, in Zimbabwe to create something there, then I'm able to say, yep, got it, I'm there. So I think the big hairy audacious goal for me is a level of freedom that enables me to say yes to the things that I'm called to say yes to, without all of the excuses, without all of but I need to, none of that, but yes, we're going to work on that and we're going to make it happen. So I know that's not the standard corporate answer, but freedom and peace, I think, are just continuing to rise in those levels of freedom and peace is what's important to me, because it's what's going to enable me to continue the work and accelerate the work that I'm called to do.
It's just consistent with where you are. That was the most amazing response, particularly around you saying every day I'm walking out what's scary,
Yeah.
what's like purposeful, what's going to get me to increased impact. And every day and to me, it's when you take stock at the end of the day, is was the moment and was the time spent well today? And
Yeah.
every day you're walking in that, right? And like you
Exactly.
said, it was that I wanted to be a writer, but the plan was bigger than that. And it was just, you needed to say yes to being a writer.
Right. Yeah.
And that was a catalyst for but what's possible. And we always talk about that in coaching, like what's possible, like the reframe of, yeah, that's a thing. You
Mhm.
are that. But now as a writer, what, like the seed was there of, I now want to help others
Right.
with that process. And 10x it, we're not just talking about writing books. You're now in position as the most important part of a doctoral journey is that research process. And
Yes.
how do you not only do it, but do it well to where you can defend well, you can make sure you're setting up the right structure. And I'm telling you, I got you earmarked. Like already, like I'm like, I don't care what she charge. Like I'm like, like I'm on it because of that's a journey in and of itself for PhD students. Like, and I know you, Dr. Pam, like you probably sit people down. I know you sitting people down. It's like, look, this is a long journey to get to this point.
Right.
And this needs to be meaningful. It needs to be impactful because nobody says I'm signing up for a PhD for the sake of it. Like, nobody signs up for that pain.
Right.
Like you, unless you just like, all right, whatever. But that doctoral process is a journey of purpose. Like you saw a need in the world. Hopefully that's what your journey was. You
Mhm.
saw a need in the world and you said, I believe I can add to that. I can impact that space by me becoming Dr. So and so. And when you think about just the ripples that um you desire, those connected to you, right? And we always talk about community. What type of people do you allow to be in your space, right?
Mm.
Because again, if you're in this purposeful work all the time, and again, as a value, as a lifestyle, what type of people are drawn to Dr. Pam?
Well, okay, so that's two different
It
questions. Who I
is.
allow to be in my space and who are drawn,
I
and
know. I did it on
everyone is,
purpose.
yeah, everyone is drawn. Can't come in. Um,
Mhm.
but that's so interesting. It's such an important question because that is a huge percentage of what it takes to allow me to be who I am and to do what I do, or the people who surround me. And so I take that very seriously. I take my boundaries very seriously. So the people who I allow to be around me are people who are they have a possibilities mindset, that they are more about the possibilities than they are about the limitations and the boundaries. Not that people can't speak of limitations and boundaries around me, but if that is your nature, if that is just who you are, that you are all about the limitations, I can't have you around me. So I really need to be around people who are about the possibilities, who are solution oriented. Um, depending on the proximity that you have to me, it is important to me that people are purpose driven. I understand that everybody doesn't yet understand their purpose, so it's not a requirement to be, in my world if you don't have that clear yet. But if you're going to be somebody who is really kind of integrated in the work that I'm doing, purpose driven is going to be very important. And then people who are, number one, I should have said this part first, but compassionate and really care about human dignity. I just refuse to expend my time and energy on a personal level, or on a close level, unless I'm here to help you learn it. But if you're in my circle, that element of human dignity is so extremely important. I don't have very much patience for people who disregard the experiences of others or put their experiences in front of other people. I just have very little patience for that.
So you just hit on something that I have to address, particularly that part right there, because all right, let's just throw it out there. Everybody knows me at this point. DEI is a
Yeah.
thing.
Yep.
It's a thing, and I believe the hearts of people want to believe that they can have these conversations, but let's be honest, it's like a bunch of babies
Mm-hmm.
that don't know how to respond and react to something they don't like.
Yeah.
And this isn't having these conversations in a meaningful, dignified way seems to be escaping senior leaders across organizations.
Yes.
What
Yeah.
have been the things you've had to you that and not even had to the things you've encountered as organizations have sought out the Academy of Creative Coaching, Dr.
Mhm.
Pam, to help them get better? What are the things and types of conversations you're having?
Well, what's evident to me is that this whole culture right now around hate and trying to dismantle that hate and some of the institutional racism and all of these things that are happening, these conversations are triggering um, the trauma that people have experienced on all sides of the fence. So whether you are a person who has been targeted because of your identity, your race, your gender, and so forth, this is an obvious trigger to trauma because we have to see it on TV. We've got these recordings of police brutality, all of these things. But it's also triggering the trauma of people who are, you know, just who are perpetrators of racism, who are committing these kinds of acts, whether they are intentional or not. I believe it's also triggering their trauma. It's that saying, hurt people hurt people. I don't believe that people are perpetrators of racism because they've had happy lives. I believe that there is some embedded deep pain that exists, and I believe that it's also generational for them as well. So what I've encountered is that there are a bunch of wounded people who are seeking ways to get trained on diversity. And if we just go in there with, okay, so you need to not microaggress, don't say bad things and don't do this and don't do that, we are completely missing what's going on inside of people. And I think that with coaching, we have an opportunity to dive in deeply with what's going on inside of people. And there are lines between therapy and coaching as we start to go in there. But I think that this is where some important partnerships may need to happen between therapy and coaching. We do need to dive in. I remember having a boss who dealt with a whole lot of public abuse from I will keep their gender anonymous, but from their parent slash boss, because there was some nepotism going on in that company and everybody saw it. And so when this person 20 years later becomes the leader of the same department, they are pouring out all of that stuff that they had on everybody else. And I think this is what we miss when we go in and we do standard style DEI trainings. There is so much more than the behavioral shift that needs to happen. There's even more than the worldview shift that needs to happen. The worldview shift is, okay, I understand my privilege, or okay, I understand X, Y, and Z. That's great. But there is much deeper work that needs to be done if we really want to see change.
I you well, first, students, just go ahead and because you hitting on there. It's deeper than this. But I
Mhm.
even say, even with it being deeper, as practitioners of this work, if you really truly believe in it, one thing needs to be assessed. It's their level of ability to actually go into this work.
Yes.
And one thing you hit there, particularly around, we go in with the mindset, and I'm talking about a lot of practitioners go in immediately, change your behavior.
Yep.
And they're going to have a reaction to that.
Yes.
They were like, and it's going to sound like I'm not that bad. I'm
Hmm.
not like, well, we're not totally doing that wrong. And they
Right.
become defensive instead of, hey, what's the bias there? Oh,
Right.
I got black friends. Well, stop pointing only to race.
Yes.
Bring it back to those nuances of how are you raised? What are
Hmm.
the connections between just the foundational things? Hey, the posters are on the wall that say be respectful or honor each other, but what
Right.
does it look like in practice just on a day to day?
Right.
And then if you can't even make the general connection of what your values look like in action just with each other, what
Yeah.
makes you think you can properly have a conversation that's tied up so much anxiety and pressure and all the rest of these things that come along with a diversity, equity, and inclusive conversation? And
Right.
now it turns it on its head of saying, hey, what type of conversation do we start with
Yes.
here? And in a lot of cases, what I'm finding, Dr. Pam, is that something you all talk about in the module of cultural competency for the Academy of Creative Coaching is really digging into the conflict that's coming up for
Yes.
people, and starting with, we need to turn these into not only crucial conversations, but they're necessary. And the first thing, if anybody's read the book, is start with heart.
Right. Yeah.
It's start with heart. How dare you treat me like a human being and care about me? Darn you. Don't
Right.
do that. What is that? And then normalize us actually having the conversation and assuming the best, but then addressing those visceral things that come out that sound destructive, that are destructive. And let's stop being cute with words like microaggression and
Mhm.
just flat out call it aggressive.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then the question that I would challenge people to ask themselves is, how do I respond when I am feeling threatened? And if you are of the majority, for example, and you feel that somebody who is of a different background than you is threatening your security, meaning they might be climbing up the ladder, or they have better ideas, or they are, how do you internally respond to that? Do you feel yourself getting frustrated or antagonized by is there anybody in the room who's, if just by speaking up makes you feel some type of way, that is a first, line of right there, okay, there's an issue. And that is how a lot of these microaggressions come out, when we feel that our secure position is being threatened by somebody who might perform better than us. How do we respond to that? And that's, to me, one of the beginning places of what happens when people are, treated in ways that they shouldn't be treated. I mean, I can go so deep into that, but
Yeah, and I
yeah.
think is there's the why I'm glad I'm connected and in the community of just being in your presence, Dr. Pam, and just the excellence expectation, not just from a performance standpoint, but from a lived value
Right.
perspective, and saying, hey, you can disagree with me, but
Show up.
show
Right.
up ready to have the conversation and engage well, right? And
Right.
as in that learner mentality is you're constantly like, hey, what are we learning? How are we evolving? And that as a thing for you, and it's just like you said, like it creates this daily excitement that I can't think about it 10 years from now. Like
Mhm.
I'm I'm thinking about what's going to happen at 1 o'clock today, and I
Yeah.
might learn something new, and I'm going to. And so I think that is purposeful, and that is something to emulate. And I'm so glad that one Jay Hurt was the catalyst and the conduit to putting us in the same spaces.
Yes.
Starting with your leadership academy, hopefully that comes back for that they bringing back the leadership academy for Mercer and all the rest of them, because I had so much fun and just watching you work that and as a part of curriculum for those leaders. But Dr. Pam, I don't want to hoard you or the rest of the team. I want folks to connect with you. How can they find you? How can they connect with you?
Yeah, so I am on all of the social media outlets right now as Empowered Writer. And, so that's Instagram, that's, what is there, Clubhouse,
Oh,
Twitter, Facebook, all of those. Although I have a PR expert who is working on getting me to change all of that to Pamela A. Larde. So,
Okay. Okay.
so I don't think you can go wrong by just typing in my name. But then there's also through the Academy of Creative Coaching, the email
Mhm.
Pamela at academyofcreativecoaching.com. I know it's long, but it's easy to remember. Pamela at academyofcreativecoaching.com. So,
Love it.
um, so that's pretty much the best ways to reach me.
I love it. Thank you so much, Dr. Pam, for just coming to hang out with me for a little bit, y'all. And y'all, I'm telling you, if you talk to Dr. Pam for any length of time, don't you better book her, because she's often run into so many amazing things and opportunities. And again, I believe she's super intentional. Dr. Pam, you're super intentional with your time and what you have your hands in.
Right.
And it's something that I'm trying to practice myself as a new business owner, of
Yeah.
just making sure my time and the things I'm spending time on, they make sense
Yes.
for what I want and how I want people to experience me as not only a professional, but as a human being. And so thank you
Yes.
so much for that example and modeling that.
Thank you. Thank you.
My absolute pleasure. Well, until next time, folks, y'all better make sure y'all reach out to Dr. Pam. Make sure she connection. Y'all heard what she said about who she allowed in her space. You better come correct. And so until next time, folks, be well, love on somebody, and we'll talk soon.